The sky above Earth was clear that morning. A soft breeze moved the leaves on tall trees as people went about their daily lives, unaware that history was about to be made, far beyond the blue sky. A silver spaceship glided smoothly through space. It was the first time an alien ship had come so close to Earth for peaceful contact. Inside the ship, a group of beings prepared carefully for their meeting with humans. Among them was Lyra. She was young, but proud and important in her culture. Her skin was pale, with faint blue patterns that shimmered softly in the light. Her eyes were large and bright, full of curiosity, and also pride. She belonged to a race called the Virilians, who had lived for thousands of years in strict tradition. Every moment of her life was filled with rules and ceremonies, especially when meeting new beings from other worlds. Lyra looked out of the ship's window as Earth grew bigger before her eyes. She could see green forests, wide oceans, and sparkling cities. She had learned much about humans from her teachers, but she had never seen one before. According to her people's customs, when the meeting happened, she would give a formal bow and speak carefully. Touching anyone, especially strangers, was forbidden until strong trust was built. It was a sign of respect and control. On the other side of the meeting room, Captain Mark waited. He was the leader of the human delegation and had been chosen because of his open mind and calm nature. Mark had heard about the Virilians and their old-fashioned ways. He had also learned that they were proud and serious, with a strong sense of tradition. Mark smiled softly as he thought about the meeting. He wanted to show kindness and friendship. The ship landed gently on a large platform outside the United Nations Space Station. The moment had come. Lyra adjusted her silver robe and stepped out. Her every movement was graceful and measured. Mark walked toward her, extending his hand with a warm smile. Lyra lowered her head in the formal bow she was taught. "Greetings, Captain Mark. I'm Lyra of Virelia," she said in a soft, clear voice. Mark nodded respectfully but did something unexpected next, without hesitation. He opened his arms and pulled Lyra into a hug. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Lyra's eyes widened in surprise. She stiffened, unsure what to do. A hug was not just unusual. It was shocking in her culture. It was a gesture meant only for close family or deep friends, never for formal meetings or strangers. The feeling of being touched so closely by a stranger made her heart race. She quickly stepped back, looking at Mark with wide eyes. Mark noticed her surprise and smiled gently. "I'm sorry if I startled you," he said. In human culture, a hug is a way to show respect, friendship, and trust. It is a greeting that says, "You are welcome." Lyra blinked, trying to understand. A hug as a greeting. That is very different from Virelia. We bow and speak carefully. Physical contact before trust is not allowed. Mark nodded. "I know, but sometimes breaking from tradition helps us show what we truly feel for humans." A hug is simple, but it means a lot. Other members of the Virilian delegation watched quietly. Some looked confused, others seemed unsure whether to be offended. The humans standing nearby exchanged looks, curious about the strange mix of emotions. Lyra took a deep breath. She forced herself to relax. Then, "Captain Mark, I will try to understand this gesture." Mark smiled warmly. "That's all I ask." They moved inside the space station, where a large room waited for the talks. The room was filled with light and plants from Earth. It was designed to be welcoming. As they walked, Mark told Lyra about humans, how they used many different ways to show feelings, and how hugging was common among friends and even strangers in some places. Lyra listened closely. She noticed how Mark's eyes shone when he spoke about his people's kindness. She felt something new, a small spark of connection that surprised her. At the same time, Lyra shared stories of the Virilians. She told Mark about their long history, their love of knowledge, and their deep respect for rules. Mark admired her honesty and the pride in her voice. The meeting began with formal talks about sharing technology and culture. Both sides were careful, but a friendly tone grew as time passed. Lyra found herself smiling more than she expected. Mark's openness made her feel safe even though she was far from home. After a few hours, the meeting paused for a break. Lyra stood near a window, looking out at Earth. Mark joined her quietly. "You seem different than what I imagined," she said softly. Mark laughed. "I'm glad. Humans are full of surprises." Lyra looked at him, her blue eyes bright. "I don't know if I understand all of your ways yet, but I want to learn." Mark reached out again, this time offering a gentle touch on her shoulder. Lyra did not pull away. "Good," Mark said. "We will learn from each other." Together, outside, the sun began to set. The sky turned warm colors, painting a promise of new beginnings for Lyra. The unexpected hug was the start of something she never imagined, a friendship that could change not only her life, but the future of two worlds. The sun rose gently over Earth, casting soft light through the large windows of the United Nations space station. Inside, the air was filled with quiet excitement. The talks between humans and Virilians were about to continue, but the real challenge had just begun. It was not about technology or power, but about something deeper: understanding each other's culture. Lyra sat in a chair, her thoughts racing. She could not stop thinking about the hug. In Virelia, such a gesture was rare and deeply personal. To her people, touching a stranger before trust was built was disrespectful, even dangerous. She felt a strange mixture of confusion and curiosity. Was this warmth real, or just a human trick? Across the room, Captain Mark prepared his notes, but kept stealing glances at Lyra. He wanted her to feel comfortable, but he also knew that cultures as different as theirs could lead to misunderstandings. "Maybe we need to talk more about how we show respect," he thought, when the meeting began again. Mark spoke first. "Lyra, I want to understand your customs better. Can you tell me what greetings mean for your people?" Lyra nodded, her voice calm but serious. "In Virelia, greetings are a ritual. We bow with hands folded and avoid physical contact until trust is proven. Our touch is sacred and only shared with close family or friends. It shows respect for privacy and personal space." Mark listened carefully. "That is very different from humans. We use many ways to show respect: handshakes, bows, and hugs. Sometimes even a pat on the back means friendship. Physical touch is a language for us, like words." Lyra raised an eyebrow. "But do you not worry it can be misunderstood?" "What if a hug is taken as something more than friendship?" Mark smiled. "That can happen, but usually, people trust the feelings behind it. The human heart wants to connect, even if the mind is cautious. It is a risk, but one worth taking." Lyra thought about this deeply. She had always been taught to control her emotions, to keep distance until sure of others' intentions. But humans seemed different, more open, more willing to show their feelings. During the break, Lyra and Mark walked through a garden inside the station. Flowers of many colors bloomed, and the air smelled fresh. Lyra reached out and touched a bright red flower. "This reminds me of Virelia," she said softly. "We have gardens too. They teach patience and respect for life." Mark looked at her. "Maybe we are not so different. Humans also grow gardens to remind us of peace." Suddenly, Lyra stopped. "Captain Mark, will you teach me more about human greetings? I want to understand better." Mark smiled widely. "I would like that." They sat on a bench, and Mark explained different human customs. He showed how handshake was common in business. A bow was used in some cultures for respect, and hugs were often used between friends and family, sometimes in special moments. People even held hands to show support. Lyra tried to imagine these gestures on Virelia. "It feels strange to me, but I see now that humans value connection in many ways." Mark nodded. "It is not always easy to explain, even for humans, but we try." Later that day, the two delegations met again. The Virilian elders watched closely as Lyra and Mark spoke openly. Some elders whispered quietly, unsure if these new ideas were safe. During the discussions, a sudden alarm sounded. The space station's systems showed signs of a technical problem. Lights flickered, and a low rumble shook the floor. Lyra's heart jumped. "What is happening?" she asked. Mark's voice was steady. "We have a power issue, but it is being Handled. Please stay calm. The crew quickly worked to fix the problem. It was a small malfunction caused by an old circuit, but it reminded everyone how fragile their new alliance was when the crisis passed. Mark turned to Lyra. See, sometimes things go wrong, but we can solve problems if we work together. Lyra smiled for the first time without hesitation. Yes, I see now that trust is not only about rules but about actions. As the day ended, the two sat again in the garden. Lyra looked at Mark, her blue eyes full of questions and wonder. Captain Mark, I feel that your hug was not just a greeting. It was a bridge, a way to show that humans want to be friends. Mark nodded. You were right. I hoped it would be a start. Lyra stood and looked up at the stars visible through the window. I want to learn more about humans, their ways, their feelings. It is strange, but also hopeful. Mark stood beside her. And I want to learn more about Varelia, about your traditions and your heart. Together, they walked back inside. The path ahead was not simple, but it was full of promise. In the quiet of the night, Lyra dreamed of Earth's force and the warmth of a human hug. She wondered what the future held for both their world. The days passed quickly aboard the space station. Lyra found herself thinking often about the human called Mark. Every conversation they shared peeled back a new layer of understanding between their two worlds. The walls of tradition and caution slowly softened as curiosity and respect grew. Lyra spent her mornings learning about human customs. She watched videos, listened to stories from the human crew, and even tried simple human gestures like smiling and waving. Though these small things felt awkward at first, she found joy in trying them. To her surprise, the humans responded warmly, their smiles genuine and welcoming. Mark, too, was learning. He had read many books about the Virelians, but now he saw them as real people with feelings, fears, and hopes. He admired Lyra's grace and intelligence and respected her dedication to her culture. Most of all, he appreciated her willingness to understand humans. One morning, as sunlight streamed through the tall windows, Mark approached Lyra in the garden. She was sitting quietly, watching a butterfly flutter among the flowers. The air was warm and filled with the scent of blooming plants. Good morning, Lyra, Mark said softly. How are you today? Lyra looked up and smiled. Good morning, Captain Mark. I feel better every day. Your people's kindness helps. Mark sat beside her. I'm glad. It's not easy to meet someone from a very different world and find common ground. Lyra nodded thoughtfully. Yes, in Varelia, we are taught to protect ourselves by keeping distance, but you have shown me that sometimes reaching out is stronger than holding back. Mark smiled and reached out to gently touch her hand. Lyra hesitated but did not pull away. The touch was simple, but it carried meaning: trust, friendship, and care. Their eyes met, and in that moment, both felt the walls between them grow thinner. Later that day, the two joined a meeting with their delegations. The talks focused on sharing technology to improve life on both planets. The humans offered advanced medicine, while the Virelians proposed powerful energy solutions. Despite their differences, the groups found common purpose. Lyra noticed how even the most serious elders were warming to the humans' honest efforts. The trust growing between individuals was slowly building trust between entire worlds. After the meeting, Mark invited Lyra to see something special. He led her to the observation deck, a place with a giant window looking out into space. The stars were bright, shining like diamonds on black velvet. Look at that, Mark said. Our universe is full of wonders. Lyra's eyes sparkled. It is beautiful. It reminds me of home, but also of something bigger, something we both share. Mark nodded. We may come from different places, but out here, we are all explorers. As they stood side by side, a sudden alarm sounded through the station. Red lights flashed, and a voice announced a warning: meteor storm approaching. Prepare for emergency protocols. Panic rose quickly among the crew. The meteor storm was unexpected and dangerous. The station's shields were strong, but not designed for a direct hit. Lyra's heart pounded. She looked at Mark, searching for calm. Mark's voice was steady. Stay close. We will get through this together. The crew moved swiftly to secure equipment and find safe shelter. Mark took Lyra's hand and led her to the emergency shelter deep inside the station. Inside, the small room shook as meteors struck the outer walls. Outside, loud bangs and sparks flew. The power flickered, but the emergency systems held. Lyra squeezed Mark's hand. "I have never felt fear like this." Mark smiled gently. "Fear is natural, but so is hope. We must trust each other now." Ours passed as the storm raged on. In the confined space, Lyra and Mark shared stories about their homes, their families, their dreams. The storm outside made their words more precious. When the meteor shower finally ended, the crew emerged cautiously. The station had minor damage, but everyone was safe. Lyra looked at Mark, grateful. "Thank you. You were brave and kind." Mark shrugged. "We had to work together. That is what friends do." As the day turned to night, Lyra and Mark found themselves alone again in the garden. The stars twinkled above, silent witnesses to the bond that had grown between them. Lyra smiled, her heart full. "I think I am beginning to understand. Trust is not just a rule. It is a choice we make." Mark nodded. "Exactly. And sometimes it starts with something as simple as a hug." Lyra laughed softly. "Yes, your hug was very strange to me at first, but now I see it was a gift." Mark looked at her with warmth. "Then I hope we can give many more gifts for both our peoples." The future was still uncertain, but Lyra and Mark had found something powerful, a friendship that crossed stars and cultures. Together, they would face whatever came next. The space station hummed with activity as repairs from the meteor storm were underway. Both humans and Virelians worked side by side, sharing tools and ideas. The cooperation was a new sight for many on both sides, and it filled Lyra with hope. She had never imagined she would feel so connected to another species. Captain Mark moved through the corridors, checking on the crews and offering encouragement. His calm presence was a steady anchor for everyone, especially Lyra, who was still learning to balance her pride with new feelings of friendship. One day, as they walked through a narrow maintenance tunnel, an alarm suddenly blared. The station shook violently, and emergency lights flashed red. Mark grabbed Lyra's arm to steady her. "Something's wrong," he said, his voice tense but controlled. Lyra's heart pounded. "What is happening?" Mark glanced at his wrist device, reading the emergency data. "A power surge caused a critical failure in the main reactor. We need to act fast." The station's artificial gravity flickered, and the hum of machines grew unstable. The crews scrambled to their stations, but the damage was serious. Without power, life support and communication systems could fail. Lyra felt a wave of fear, but she steadied herself. "What can we do?" Mark took a deep breath. "We have to get to the reactor control room and stabilize it manually. It's dangerous. But if we don't, the whole station could be lost." Lyra nodded. "I will help." Together, they led a small team through twisting corridors, moving quickly but carefully. The station's emergency lighting cast long shadows on the walls. The tension was thick, but the trust between the humans and Virelians held strong. When they reached the reactor room, a heavy steel door barred the entrance. Mark punched in a code, and the door slid open with a hiss. Inside, glowing panels and wires blinked erratically. The chief engineer, a human named Sarah, examined the console. "The surge damaged the cooling systems. If we don't fix it soon, the reactor will overheat." Lyra studied the controls, remembering her technical training. "I can assist with diagnostics." Mark looked at her with respect. "Good. We'll work together." The group moved with purpose. Mark helped hold tools, Sarah guided repairs, and Lyra interpreted complex readings. Their teamwork was seamless despite the pressure. Suddenly, an alert flashed red on the screen. "Warning, reactor overheating." It beeped urgently. Sarah's face tightened. "We need to activate the emergency coolant, but the manual override is tricky." Mark turned to Lyra. "Can you handle it?" Lyra nodded, feeling a surge of determination. She carefully manipulated the controls, following Sarah's instructions and trusting her own instincts. Sweat beaded on her forehead as the seconds ticked by. Slowly, the warning lights dimmed. The reactor's temperature began to drop. "We did it," Sarah breathed, relief flooding her voice. Mark smiled at Lyra. "You were incredible." Lyra's chest swelled with pride, but more than that, she felt something new belonging here. Among these strangers, she was part of a team. As they exited the reactor room, the emergency systems began restoring power. The lights returned to their normal glow, and the station's hum steadied. The crew cheered softly, exhausted but grateful. Later, Mark and Lyra found a quiet corner in the observation deck. The stars outside shone like silent guardians. Mark turned to Lyra. "Today showed me how much we can achieve when we trust each other." Lyra nodded. "I learned that trust is more than rules. It is a bond built in difficult times." Mark hesitated, then smiled warmly. "Lyra, may I?" He opened his arms, and this time, Lyra stepped forward willingly. They embraced in a hug. That was not strange or shocking, but a true symbol of friendship and respect for Lyra. It was a moment of transformation. She realized that breaking tradition was not betrayal, but growth. Mark whispered softly, "Together, we can face anything." Lyra smiled, feeling the truth in his words. The days that followed were filled with renewed energy. The delegations pushed forward with their plans for cooperation, inspired by the strength of their leader's example. Lyra spoke openly to her people about the importance of openness and trust. Some elders still hesitated, but many were moved by her courage and vision. Mark continued to support her, always ready with kindness and understanding. One evening, as the station's artificial sunset bathed the halls in golden light, Lyra stood alone at a window, gazing at Earth. Her thoughts were calm and hopeful. The human hug that had once stunned her had become a bridge between worlds, hearts, and futures. The sun rose over the Earth's horizon, painting the sky with soft shades of orange and pink. Inside the space station, a feeling of excitement and hope filled the air. After weeks of talks, repairs, and growing friendship, the moment had finally come for the alien delegation to prepare for their return home. Lyra stood at the observation deck, watching the beautiful blue planet below. Her heart was full of new feelings, hope, curiosity, and something deeper she could not yet name. She had come to Earth expecting formal rules and strict ceremonies. Instead, she had found warmth, friendship, and trust. Captain Mark approached her quietly. "Are you ready to go home, Lyra?" She smiled softly. "Yes, but I will miss this place. And the people." Mark nodded. "We will stay connected." This is only the beginning. Their friendship had become a symbol for both humans and Virilians. It showed that even the oldest traditions could change when open to understanding. The Virilian elders gathered for their final meeting. Many looked thoughtful as Lyra spoke about her experiences. "Our people are strong because of our traditions," she said, "but strength also comes from openness. I have seen how humans greet with hugs not just as a custom, but as a true expression of care." One elder spoke, his voice deep and wise. "Change is difficult, but necessary. Perhaps there is more than one way to show respect." The elders nodded slowly, a sign that the walls of tradition were beginning to shift. Meanwhile, the humans worked alongside the Virilians to finalize agreements for technology exchange and cultural programs. They planned visits to Earth and Virelia, sharing knowledge and friendship. As the alien ship prepared to leave, Mark and Lyra stood side by side on the launch platform. The crowd gathered to say goodbye, some with tears, others with smiles. Lyra turned to Mark. "Thank you for your hug. It taught me more than words could." Mark smiled warmly. "And thank you for teaching me about your world. Together, we made something new." Before stepping into her ship, Lyra looked back once more. Then, she opened her arms and gave Mark a hug, this time from her own heart. The crowd watched in awe, the simple act that spoke volumes. The ship lifted off smoothly, leaving Earth's atmosphere and heading toward the stars. As Lyra's ship disappeared into the sky, Mark felt a new hope for the future. The friendship between humans and Virilians was just the start of something greater future, where differences were celebrated and trust was the strongest bond. Back on Earth, People talked about the alien girl who had learned to hug and the human who had shown the power of kindness. Stories spread of how the very different worlds had come together, not through force or power, but through simple acts of friendship. Lyra looked forward to returning to her people and sharing all she had learned. She dreamed of a time when hugs would be a symbol of peace across the stars. And so, a new chapter began not just for Earth or Varelia, but for the universe itself.